Have you ever wondered what really goes through a woman's mind when you suddenly pull back or stop contacting her? Female psychology shows us that silence isn't just empty space. It's a trigger. When you withdraw attention, her reactions can reveal truths she would never admit out loud. Some responses may surprise you, some may confuse you, and others may confirm what you already suspected about her feelings. In this video, we'll explore the fascinating behaviors women often display when communication is cut off. From curiosity to frustration, from indifference to pursuit, the spectrum of reactions is wide, but each has a deeper psychological meaning. Understanding these signals doesn't just help you decode her behavior. It gives you insight into the hidden dynamics of attraction, attachment, and emotional investment. But let me ask you first, if someone you cared about suddenly went silent, would you feel relief, indifference, or an urge to chase them? Drop your honest answer in the comments, because this is exactly the type of emotional test women face in these situations. Stay tuned as we break down the subtle signs backed by psychology that show how women truly respond when you stop contacting them. By the end, you'll understand not only her behavior, but also the silent power of doing nothing. 1. Her initial shock. Why silence feels louder than words. When you suddenly stop contacting a woman, the very first reaction she experiences is often shock. Whether she admits it or not, silence speaks louder than anything you could have said. Humans by nature crave certainty. And when communication breaks, the brain scrambles for answers. For a woman, especially if she has grown used to your presence, the absence of messages or calls feels like an unexpected shift that demands explanation. Psychologically, this is tied to what's known as the Zeigarnik effect. The human mind hates unfinished business. When you suddenly withdraw, her brain frames the lack of closure as a puzzle she needs to solve. Even if she wasn't deeply invested, the break in the pattern triggers curiosity and discomfort. It isn't always about missing you personally at first. It's about missing the routine of your presence. For example, imagine texting someone daily for weeks and then, suddenly, nothing. Even if you didn't think you were attached, the silence gnaws at you. The same principle applies here. At the start, she might not feel heartbreak, but she will feel unsettled because the silence disrupts her sense of control over the dynamic. This shock also forces her to reflect. She might ask herself, did I do something wrong? Did he lose interest? Is he testing me? Each of these questions creates emotional weight. Whether she hides it or not, the quiet space you leave behind begins to occupy her mind more than your presence did. In short, the initial shock is not about words, but about the sudden absence of them. Silence makes her notice the space you used to fill, and psychology shows us that emptiness often speaks louder than attention. 2. Curiosity turns into investigation. She starts watching closely. After the initial shock fades, curiosity takes over. When you stop contacting her, she begins to wonder not just why you went silent, but what you're doing instead. This curiosity often pushes her into a subtle investigation mode, watching your online activity, checking if you viewed her stories, or paying closer attention to who you're interacting with. In female psychology, this stage is fueled by the need for reassurance and clarity. This behavior is tied to what psychologists call uncertainty reduction theory. When people don't know what's happening, they actively seek information to reduce their anxiety. For her, the lack of contact feels like a gap she needs to fill with data. She may not message you directly, but she'll start noticing details she would normally ignore. Suddenly, small things like you being online at odd hours or not liking her posts become signals she tries to decode. Take a real-life example. A woman who used to receive daily texts suddenly notices that your profile picture changes, or that you were tagged in a photo with friends. Even if these things are normal, in her heightened state of curiosity, she reads meaning into them. She may tell herself she's not checking on you, but in reality, your silence has made her more alert to your presence than ever. This stage often reveals just how much she was invested, even if she pretended otherwise. A woman who truly doesn't care won't spend energy watching what you're doing. But if she's curious, if she starts piecing together clues, then your silence has triggered an emotional response she can't ignore. In essence, your lack of contact shifts the power dynamic. Instead of you chasing her, she starts paying closer attention to you, often without realizing how much energy she's investing in the search for answers. 3. From indifference to frustration, the emotional roller coaster. At first, she might try to act indifferent when you stop contacting her. She could tell herself, "It doesn't matter, I'm fine without him." But as the silence stretches, that indifference often transforms into frustration. This shift is not random, it's part of the emotional roller coaster triggered by unmet expectations. Human psychology shows that when we anticipate attention and don't receive it, the gap creates irritation, even anger. This stage often reveals itself through subtle behavior changes. She may start posting more frequently on social media, sharing pictures, quotes, or updates that seem aimed at proving she's unbothered. In reality, these posts are often indirect responses to your silence, a way to reclaim control of the narrative. What looks like confidence on the outside can actually be frustration beneath the surface. A good example of this dynamic is when someone posts, "I don't chase, I replace Masumu," or begins flaunting their social life right after being ignored. These behaviors aren't accidental. They're signals meant to provoke a reaction. By showing you that she's moving on, she's testing whether you'll break your silence. Ironically, the more she tries to appear indifferent, the more energy she's actually spending on the situation. Psychologists call this the reactance effect. When people feel their freedom or control is threatened, they react by trying harder to reassert it. In this case, your silence limits her control over the relationship dynamic, so she responds with behaviors meant to get that control back. The frustration builds because she can't easily resolve the tension. Should she reach out, ignore you, or find another way to regain balance? In short, what begins as indifference almost always evolves into irritation if your silence lasts. And that frustration is a clear sign that she is emotionally invested. Because if she truly didn't care, your absence wouldn't affect her at all. 4. When she reaches out first, the subtle signs of pursuit. Eventually, frustration can tip into action. When your silence lasts long enough, many women will begin to reach out first, often in subtle ways. This doesn't always mean a direct message like, "Why aren't you texting me?" Instead, it might show up in smaller signals meant to test your response. These little moves are her way of breaking the silence without fully admitting that she misses your attention. For instance, she may send a casual "hey" or drop a random meme, pretending it's lighthearted. Or she might comment on an old inside joke, giving you an easy entry point to reply. Another common tactic is accidental interaction, liking one of your posts, replying to a story, or even sending a message that doesn't really require a response. All of these are soft approaches to see if you'll re-engage. From a psychological perspective, this is a form of bidding for connection. Research in relationships shows that people make small attempts to regain closeness without exposing themselves to full rejection. By reaching out indirectly, she keeps her pride intact while still signaling that your silence has affected her. An example, a woman might comment, "Wow, you disappeared," with a laughing emoji. On the surface, it looks casual, but beneath it is a real question. Why did you stop contacting me? Do I still matter to you? Her light tone masks the fact that she is pursuing, even if subtly. When she takes this step, it's a turning point. The dynamic has shifted. Instead of you chasing her, she is now chasing your attention. And while she may not phrase it as vulnerability, her actions reveal what words don't. Your silence made an impact strong enough to draw her closer. 5. Testing your silence. How she tries to pull you back once she realizes you're not rushing back after her first subtle attempts, a new stage begins. Testing your silence. At this point, her goal is to see how firm you are in your withdrawal and whether she still has influence over you. Instead of directly asking what's going on, she may try to provoke a response through behavior, words, or even emotional triggers. One common tactic is the indirect test. She might post content on social media that she knows will catch your attention. Maybe a picture with another guy, a quote about being done with toxic people, or updates showing she's living her best life. These aren't random posts. They're designed to see if you'll break and react. If you comment, like, or confront her, she knows she still has emotional control. Another method is the direct test in disguise. She could send a confusing or provocative message like, "Guess who I ran into today?" Or, "Wow, you've really changed." The purpose isn't the content itself. It's to see if you'll engage. In female psychology, these small provocations act like hooks, each one testing how strong your silence really is. A practical example. Imagine she tells you casually that someone else has been showing her attention. She might not even be interested in that person, but the information is a test. Will you ignore it or will you react with jealousy? If you do, she knows your silence is fragile. If you don't, she has to question whether she's losing her influence over you. These tests reveal something important. Silence shifts the balance of power. By holding back, you force her to act, and in doing so, she exposes her investment in you. The more she tests, the clearer it becomes that your absence matters. Otherwise, there would be nothing to test. 6. What her final reaction reveals about her true feelings. After the tests and the subtle pursuits, her final reaction to your silence is the clearest indicator of how she truly feels about you. By this stage, she has already gone through shock, curiosity, frustration, and attempts to pull you back. What she does now tells you whether you actually mattered to her, or if your connection was more fragile than you thought. If she was emotionally invested, her final reaction will usually be an attempt at direct communication. She may finally drop the games and say something honest like, "Why did you stop talking to me?" Or, "Did I do something wrong?" This vulnerability, even if subtle, reveals that your absence struck a deeper chord. For her, the silence is no longer just a game. It's something she needs clarity on. On the other hand, if she wasn't truly invested, her final reaction may be complete withdrawal. She may stop testing, stop checking, and move on without explanation. This doesn't necessarily mean she didn't care at all. It could mean her pride outweighed her interest. But it shows that your silence wasn't strong enough to pull her into deeper pursuit. An example of this can be seen in relationships where one partner suddenly goes quiet. The invested partner eventually seeks closure, even if it means swallowing pride. The less invested partner, however, interprets silence as a sign to detach permanently. Both reactions reveal the truth. One exposes emotional depth, the other exposes lack of it. Ultimately, her final response uncovers the hidden reality of the connection. Silence doesn't just test her patience, it reveals whether her feelings were genuine or surface level. As difficult as it may be, this stage offers clarity. If she fights for your attention, she cared more than she admitted. If she lets go completely, she never cared as much as you thought. Silence is never just silence. It's a mirror that reflects hidden emotions. When you stop contacting a woman, her reactions move through stages. Shock, curiosity, frustration, pursuit, and finally a clear revelation of her true feelings. Each step uncovers how invested she really was and whether her interest ran deep or was only on the surface. The power of silence lies in the clarity it brings. Instead of asking questions or chasing answers, you allow her behavior to speak for itself. And in relationships, actions reveal the truth far more than words ever could. If you stayed with me until the end, write Psi Insight in the comments to let me know. And tell me, do you believe silence reveals more about a person's feelings than direct communication does?